What up? Welcome to your morning drip. I did a horrible job because this mic's not anywhere near me. What up? Welcome to your morning drip. I am your host, Ronan Rock. We have a special guest here in the building, Rodrigo, the amazing filmmaker, activist. I heard that you have a good top rock in the b-boy community.
A top rock?
Yeah. No. All right. All right. Not even close. But yeah, man, we brought you on the show today because you're a part of an amazing film that just came out. You also have some dope insight on a different view of the world, I would say. So, we're just going to sit, chill, have a little talk. We also got another special guest coming in, maybe possibly two. So, yeah, this is going to be a great episode. Missa, if you could please press the graphic for the main screen. Bam! You're now officially on your morning drip.
That's legit.
Yeah. So, Rodrigo.
Yeah.
What is up?
How's it going?
So let's tell the I don't know why I'm like hearing an echo, but I'm probably crazy.
No,
I'm probably crazy. Yeah, man. So tell people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Rodrigo Melgarejo. I was born in Guadalajara. I've been here in Portland now for 14 years. A long time.
You're a Portlander now.
I am. I'm officially here longer than I've ever been anywhere else. So, yeah, I grew up in Chicago.
Yo, Chi-Town, where you at? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. What can I say? I don't know. My family was really heavily involved in political activism when I was a kid.
Yeah.
With the Zapatista movement.
But that mic just you can move it too. You can get all the goods in there.
With the Zapatista movement in Mexico, so we kind of all grew up around rallies and protests and gatherings and community and stuff. So
okay.
So yeah, that kind of set a precedent into like what the rest of my life is going to be like. Because I just like had that interest in social.
So you've always had kind of this like political awakening of like, this isn't a new thing since George Floyd for you.
Yeah, to me, it all started when my dad showed me a book of photographs from the Gulf War in '93. I remember looking at photos of Iraq at the time and just kind of having this thought process of like, how can people live like this? My dad would give me a little bit of rundown of it, and that sort of started this sort of move towards just having more sympathy for others. And
yeah, I mean, it's a thing that like I've always been in some kind of way politically active, and been more radical than some of the people around me. Like when I was a kid, people would drop like, they would say slurs to people like racially, and I remember very vividly when I was a kid that one was like, somebody said like, "Oh, you're a Jew," and to one of my friends, and was like ragging on him, and I was just like, and I found out about Ethiopian Jews like from some TV show or something like that, and I was like, oh, so there's black Jewish people. So I went up to the dude and I was just like, yo, I'm an Ethiopian Jew, what's up?
Yeah.
And it's always been a thing for like sticking up for other people. For me has always been a big thing. Yeah. So no, I can definitely appreciate having that from early onset, especially from your parents.
Yeah.
Like it's my mom within it, she was wary and very overprotective.
Yeah.
So she wasn't as much like, let's go out and do this stuff. But she was always a woman somewhat woke to being like, yo, we don't sit up here and harm other people. We don't discriminate or whatever else. And she would check me if I tried.
Yeah.
But no, man, like, so with you having that background, like, what was it like going through like high school and stuff for you?
Well, I mean, also, you know, I was also an immigrant in this country, you know, at the age of 7. So to me, that also.
Where did you move to first? Chicago?
Chicago was the first place we moved to.
Yeah.
Yeah. From Guadalajara. But it was, you know, so to me, my life in this country has been so different. You know, it's always like this, what I called, there was a form assimilation, you know, where I was being forced to be part of this country, speak the language, act a part, you know, and then down the line you realize, oh, wait, I can't actually be that, right? Or they don't even want you to be that, really.
Yeah. The
You're
American
still
dream's
always
not
the
for
Mexican
me.
kid, you're always still like the brown kid, you're still like segregated from that.
Yeah, I think it's like a good point of conversation to have about this. Like, I know what the black experience is like. I know what, you know, to be, you know, our history is we're enslaved and so on, to be here. Like, what is that like for you? Like, what is your, like, your history of your, like, your people feel like for you within then having to deal with America?
I mean, you know, Mexico being so close to this country, you know, everyone kind of grows up with the idea that you're going to come here or that your family members have been here. You know, my dad goes way back to his family moving to California, him going to California as a kid, coming back to Mexico, and always kind of having this, like, thought that
forth,
coming here was, like, going to provide more opportunities. And but we lived in a city, so we kind of were fine for the most part. You know, like, in my thought, I was like, man, I enjoyed being in Mexico. It was great.
Yeah.
But then one day, my dad's just like, we're moving to Chicago. You know, so it's like that, just uprooting all of that kind of has an effect on you.
Yeah.
And then you, all of a sudden, in a new country, a new city, with a new language, a new style and culture. And so you're always, so you're, as a young kid especially, you know, your need is to be part of things. You don't want to be separate. You don't want to be the odd man out. You know, you don't want to be segregated from everybody. So you want to just adapt. But this country has always shown that it's very difficult to do that, because even when you fully adapt, you know, you're still very different. And so you kind of hold on to this, like, feeling that you're different, and that manifests itself in, like, your self-worth, your identity, your
I'm just gonna stop you for a second. You're gonna kill the audio listener. So just bring it right up.
Oh, right here?
Yeah. Just bring it right up.
Oh,
and
real
just,
close? Okay.
Yeah, talk into the circle part.
Yeah. And so it's just very, there's a lot of effects that it gives you mentally about yourself. And so it didn't dawn on me until years later as an adult that I was like, you know what, I don't think I'm being myself. You know?
Is that what it took was for you to become an adult to recognize your difference and accept it?
Yeah, and to just sort of find my own identity as a person of color, you know, as a person that has a much different background, as a person that speaks naturally a different language.
So,
you know?
So for once again, from the black experience, it's a thing that we always, like, a large part of the black community tries to adopt things from other groups, like, you know, the stereotypical thing of getting, like, Asian tattoos, and it's not a thing that you see. I don't think I know of a black person that has, like, African tattoos on them, but it's like the lost heritage. But I'm guessing that's got to be different for you, because you can take a car ride and go visit it.
Right.
Like,
yeah. I mean, there's for us, you know, there's a rich culture in Mexico. There's something to really adapt to and take on when you choose to do that, you know. And there's a lot of symbolism and a lot of, like, culture, things like, you know, my tattoos or something related to Mexico are things that are, you know, that speak of me, but also speak of my country.
Yeah.
So you just, but at the same time, you know, I've been here for over 30 years now. So it's like, I'm kind of not going anywhere else, you know, like I have to sort of like, so I just kind of have to make my own world here.
What has it been like for you, man? Like within going from having the parents that have been like activists, injecting that community, being a person of color, and now like in this position where everything like has turned into, you know, the summer of George, like, you know, the red hot summer out here. Like how is it from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an awakening that I feel that it's a time for people of color to sort of like really speak up for themselves, you know, and show the rest of this country that like we matter, right? So it's like that we also play a huge part in this country, that we play a huge role in society. Yeah. So it's whether we're talking about the protest or, you know, what manifested last year after George Floyd, you know, I think that what I see as the awakening is the long-term changes that are going to come from this sort of almost like a decolonization of oneself, you know, to make that change, to be like, you know what, I'm proud of who I am. I love the color of my skin. I love my culture. I love my language. I love my people. And you can still be part of this country and have that identity of yourself.
It's weird for people that are obviously like, it's weird for people of color when you obviously can tell that I am not directly from America, that we have such a crisis of being able to be proud of our heritage, being able to express it without being ridiculed, or for when we do express it or we do try to share it with people, for it not to be co-opted or, you know, it just gets messy. But it's so weird for white people. They don't have that problem. Like, they're allowed to be outwardly proud of their heritage, talk about it, have shops about it and everything else. And it's not taboo or weird or awkward. It's like, yeah, I'm Irish. And all of Boston loves this, or all of Chicago. Definitely. Yeah. Huge Irish community. Yeah. They sit up here and dye the river green. Yeah. So it's like, it's so weird that it becomes awkward when you can literally see it on your skin, your heritage, and you're not supposed to talk about it. Yeah. It's, I don't know. I've always had trouble with that. I used to, and kind of still do, want to get a full Asian traditional suit of tattoos. And at one point during the protest, I was like, I love Asian culture. I have a lot of people that I consider family that are Asian. I've been, to a certain extent, adopted by Asian families, like especially those that are Pacific Islander and stuff like that. But within that, I'm like, I'm wearing their culture on my skin, and I had like a hard time thinking about that and wrapping my head around why I was doing that. Right. Was it because of the love of the art? Was it because of the love of that part of their culture? Or was it trying to hide my own skin? Yeah. Like,
but I think also just an identity is one thing. Like, what your background is one thing, and then there's also the other aspect of like who you are as a person, right? Mm-hmm. How you dress, what you love, what kind of music you like, what kind of sports you like, or activities, whether you're artistic or whether you're technical, or whether, you know what I mean, like those also kind of make up who you are. So there's all of that as well, and which are essentially, especially in this country, those are the things that are sort of surrounding you, right? Mm-hmm. It's like there's an American culture, and then we sort of adapt to that. But also, it doesn't mean you have to get rid of who you are as a person internally. Yeah. And what your background makes you, you know?
Yeah, I think it's, once again, it's in America, it's hard to carry your heritage. And I think now, more so than ever, we're getting back to that point of being proud of our heritage and being able to express it, at least once again, speaking for Black people, like because I speak for all the blacks. I definitely do not. I can't see behind the monitors right now, but I feel like Missa might have rolled her eyes when I said that, or been like, "Hey, yo, we do this thing on the show where whenever I say what would you say, a spicy take, I get
anything controversial.
You better hope that he got the mic on over there for you." Oh. Also, we do have another special guest in the building. Shout out to Sam. We have not given Sam a on-air name yet. Like there's Missa. There usually is off mic. Off mic is in
Off
love
Sam.
jail right now. Off Sam. That doesn't have the right pizzazz to it. Like I'm like I want to call you like click because you take photos or something. I don't know. That's a horrible name. I don't know. You know.
There's gotta be something better photo related, like Snapshot or.
Yo, I was literally thinking of Snap.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's a homie Snap. You know, da 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 da. Yo, Snap. Yo, pull up this reel or something. But nah. But I think going back to you, I think it's dope that with this documentary that you did, what's the name of said documentary?
So the documentary I didn't make, but some
well, you worked on.
I am just closely related to the people that are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
V Bravo is the director.
Yes.
He shot it. I met him recently this year, but he works with an old comrade and homie of mine from Chicago. His name is Rodrigo. Rod One, Rebel Diaz is his hip hop group. He introduced me to V and introduced me to what they were doing in Chile.
Yeah.
And I recently got to go to Chile in March to sort of get a rundown of like what they shot, who the people they worked with, and what the situation was in Chile on a personal firsthand basis.
So were they wrapping up the filming, or did they already do the filming when you came out?
They had already kind of wrapped it up, and this was what I sort of partook in, was a black and brown delegation of activists from this country, from the Bronx, from New Mexico, from Virginia, from Chicago, and from Portland to come out to Chile and sort of bridge the gap between the people down there and the people here.
Yeah.
Sort of like find a correlation between what's happening in Chile and what's happening in the U.S.
And this was particularly had to do with the George Floyd and everything else, or was this just
for us? You know, that was what we were coming in from, our experiences in like what had happened within the last year after George Floyd, and to talk to the Chilenos that were experiencing their own uprise that had started in October of 2019, so almost a year beforehand. So they had already gone into almost or half of 6-7 months or something before us. But you know, the correlations were so similar in just the process of what we had gone through as far as like our street actions and like what the street actions are over there. So then it was so at that point, you know, we collected a group of 6 of us that got to travel to Chile, and got to, you know, meet personally all the people that were there, and also get to see some of the street actions that were going on, which are intense.
What was more intense, the street actions here in Portland or out in Chile?
I mean, the street actions here in Portland were intense all around. I mean, they were pretty heavily involved, more so I feel like than in some other cities, surprisingly enough, you know. And I think that that's what the director V sort of took notice of, and he was like, man, y'all in Portland are really throwing it down. I mean, it's interesting, right? Because in our own perspective, we have our own personal views of like what was going on here, but outside of here, everybody was just like,
they made it look wild. They made it look like if you were, you know, Portland is a very small city, like geographically it is small, but in that same way, it was an even smaller sector of it was just the protest. It was very isolated to very specific neighborhoods or even specific times a day.
right?
Like you could be out on the same corner in the middle of the day until like it gets dark and it starts turning into like one of those movies like, oh yo, the street lights are on. It's about to get crazy out here. But that was always the thing that kind of got weird to me within seeing like anything covering the protests at that point that it didn't tell the whole story. And that's why I'm so interested in talking to V, the director of the documentary, like about like how, one, do you film that and be honest to it? And two, like what do you do within there to entertain people and make it a product that somebody is going to sit and take not only enjoyment from, but take something from that is going to be honest. Because I feel like the one dope thing about documentaries more so than news coverage is that you get the full breadth of it, and it isn't just for headlines. It doesn't have to have this crazy tone to it to grab your attention, to hold you there. It can be honest and still be able to hold you there. So well, one thing I think that's very important about this documentary is that what it does is that it gives you the story from the people. And there's a group of them that are selected for this documentary who, give you the full rundown and experience of what it's like to be in the street in the front lines, what it was like to be a victim of the police brutality down there, and also just being able to just hear the story from the people that were experiencing it. There's no moment to like sort of just, shove it down your throat, kind of like, oh, this is what's going on and this is what's happening here and it's happening because of this. It's like, no, here's a rundown of the historical aspects of what happened in Chile, and then here's a story from the people that are experiencing right now. Yeah. I just sent you the Zoom link, so if you want to send that over to V. So weird. I hate how now the Apple, like iTunes, iPhone, whatever you want to call it, thing constantly now tells me to update contacts, like their information, their stuff. And it's like, you sent me, we texted back and forth, and I update your stuff. So I got your beautiful picture that some reason doesn't have a mustache on it. And I'm kind of disappointed about.
This is a COVID mustache, so this is hiding behind a mask for a while.
You gotta update the photo.
I mean, I need to probably just go back to that.
I'm be honest. You wear it well. It looks very distinguished on you.
It's new to me. I don't think I can grow a good mustache, but I think this is an attempt at doing something.
Do you see what I have? I know I just got lined up so it looks more realistic. Yeah. This is horrible. This is not a real mustache. So I'm over there very envious of you. You can run a comb through that. I can run a toothpick through this. That's just a single.
I might just be growing it now for a while.
Dude, no. You doing well with it. Yeah. Also, shout out our homie Jordan that connected us. That said that we needed to talk. We needed to know one another, and I feel like she was very correct within her assessment. Yeah. Just let me know when V is.
Yeah, he said he was gonna jump on soon.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to talk about. There's so many things, so many different levels of experiences that I feel like we could relate to or talk about. Especially in our just involvement in being an activist in this country.
Yeah.
For such a long time, or at least like having that like activist spirit. Really,
I definitely had the activist spirit. I've been a jaded person within recent history of being an activist or being an ally within stuff, just because sometimes what it turns into, like you end up in that situation where you'll be like, hey, I want to go and fight this cause, or I want to be a part of this battle for someone else, but I don't want to speak for them. Yeah. But then sometimes people try to rope you into being the voice for someone else. Or more often than not, what ends up happening is you try to be there for someone else, and they feel like you're not doing it in the right way, and you get ridiculed for it. And I definitely feel like, especially in Portland, with it being one of the more, and I just love using this terminology, woke, I feel like sometimes it's a situation where the third eye is open while the two eyes are closed. And when the George Floyd situation happened, all my reservations of going out and being a part of the protest disappeared, because my girl took me out to one of the marches that happened at Revolution Hall. And be honest, the white people piss me off. It was a thing that I'm like, how can you be so off rhythm within these chants? Why are you getting quiet? There's thousands of people out here. Just clap on rhythm. What is going on? And that part of it made me upset, but the larger part, it looked like people were like bewildered and didn't know what to do. They're like, I want to be here, but I don't know for what. And that made me, and please, in the protests out here, in the community that's out here, who are our leaders? Like, if there was like, if you know, I'm trying to think of a good example. In every city, you have your Martin Luther King, your Malcolm X, your people that are not only a part of the community, but in lack of a better term, they're their spiritual revolutionary leader. And I have a hard time figuring out who that is for us in Portland, and more so when there feels like there's about to be, their heads get chopped off. And that's one.
Yeah, I mean, all I have to say, like, I mean, I think with activism, it's such a really like complicated thing for oneself, right? Because one could also like be hard on, like, I'm hard on myself, being like, oh man, I could have done so much. Like growing up, there's so many moments where I felt really impassioned about, like, you know, the Iraq War, the you know, the anti-Muslim sentiment after 9/11, all those things where I was very vocal, you know, with my friends. I was vocal online about things. But there's so much more I could have done, you know? And so I always struggled with, like, am I not doing enough? Or am I, like, just annoying all the time because I'm, like, constantly just bringing up politics or social issues or things like that. But then, to me, it just, like, culminated down the line that the real activism for me comes from the work that I do for myself, to better myself, right? And to better the people around me. And so if that means communicating to them how I feel by giving them, you know, information about things that are going on in a more constructive way, or just being able to do that personal work to be able to change myself to be a better person, right? So
it's hard to change yourself.
Hard. And you know, when it came from me, and then I think this is like sort of a segue into, like, you know, talking about Chile. Chile became an important country for me and an important cause for me because I went there in 2016 with my friend Kelly Bauer, who was been working on a documentary down there for about 8 years on the Mapuche struggle, the indigenous struggle that's going on in Chile and Argentina. But when I was down there, you know, the Mapuche people, what they're trying to do is they're trying to regain their identity. They're trying to reclaim their land. They're trying to reclaim their language. You know, they're trying to bring back that identity of themselves. And so that's their struggle. You know, that's their you know, there's various things that they're doing, but, like, for me, it's like I saw a sort of a struggle for regaining that identity, you know, not being just a Chileno, but being a Mapuche. So I got down there, and we were there for a month, and I met the 7-year-old kid who was Mapuche, whose parents were very active in land reclamation, land back, basically. Yeah. And so then this little kid came up to me, and he goes, "Where are you from?" And I was like, "I don't know. Portland, you know?" He's like, no, where are you from, man? And I was like, I'm from Mexico. He's like, who are your people? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, don't you think it's important to know who your people are, to know who you are? And I was like, man, a 7-year-old kid told me that, and it just kind of laid a seed in me, because down months later, you know, I'm like back home, and I'm thinking, I was like, who am I? Who are my people? You know what I'm saying? And so that started a process of sort of decolonizing myself, and that came with, like, that internal work to be like, who am I? You know, who do I want to be? And who are my people? And what's my community like? And that, you know, was internal work that I did with myself. It was therapy as well. It was just kind of like, you know, doing all of this, like, just internal work to be like, to really kind of, that activism, what I feel like is for me. It's like becoming the person that I want to be. And that, to me, and so I hold dearly, like, the Mapuche struggle because of that. I hold dearly, like, what's going on in Chile.
So, because the documentary is all about Chile. Yeah. What is going on? Like, what, like, without, like, you know, delving into what I'm sure the documentary is going to cover, but, like, what is the situation going on there? Because to be honest,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I think that's, that is a segue for V to really explain that much better than I can. Because in my perspective, it's yeah. I mean, I could have some sort of little bit of views on it, but really, he can really encapsulate that information.
Is he
on your phone?
Oh, is that what's been going on this whole time?
Got my beautiful face on the Zoom call. I was like, I can hear myself. I know I can hear myself, and it was this the whole time.
Yeah, that was it. I was like, I can hear my voice tinny in the background. But now, yeah, so that makes a lot more sense. No, but yeah, is V ready to go?
I don't know. Is he on? Not yet.
Not yet. All right.
Not yet. But yeah, no. I mean, I think what's going on in Chile. I think to give just a little bit of a historical context, Chile was going through a dictatorship. Went through a dictatorship for like 18 years.
Yeah.
And starting in 1973, they were one of the first countries to successfully, through social movement, move the country towards a socialist president and a socialist system. That was done democratically through voting and through social work and through community work, a people's movement. They, Cuba, did its transition. They did it the way they did it, which was very different than how Chile went about it. And so, and so the U.S., because of like the increase in copper manufacturing or copper mining, the socialist president Salvador Allende nationalized it. And so that generally was a threat towards the U.S., and being able to not have that access to it, which the copper ended up becoming used in the manufacturing of technology, and, but so then in 1970, that was in 1970, 1973, through a CIA-backed coup led by General Pinochet, they took over the country. Allende was murdered, and then the country after that went through 18 years of a brutal dictatorship where like 40,000 people went missing, 4,000 were killed, or at least like they were identified as being murdered, and thousands and thousands of people were displaced, and they went through their own sort of like genocide. And then since then, it's just been this neoliberal sort of movement to attempt to patch up all of the atrocities they committed and just, move on from that and being like, oh, we're a democracy now, right? And that led to the protests in October 2019, where it started at a rise of the metro prices, where the students ended up protesting, and the police responded brutally. And then that led people to support the students, which then eventually people came out being like, you know what, I actually haven't been okay since the dictatorship ended. There's still unresolved issues. Like, where are my family members? Like, what happened to my community? Like, let's talk about like what happened to us during that time. And so it became a national movement, and a national movement to do something that Pinochet had rewritten the Constitution during the dictatorship. So now it was a move to rewrite it and get it back.
It's something that caught me that you were saying is that did you say CIA?
Yeah.
So many times we have these things that happen, and I don't know what machine or thing makes it into being a conspiracy, and then it becomes like this unrealistic thing that these things happen. It's like, no way our government did X, Y, and Z. That's you're crazy. You're the same as the dude that does that says the frogs are turning people gay, and what's that dude's name? Sam, you know who I'm talking about? The crazy guy that said the school shooting was fake and that it was actors in it, and then no one knows him.
There's a lot of those people.
No, Alex Jones. Yeah, it's like you turn into basically Alex Jones about this stuff, and I'm just like, the victor gets to tell the narrative, but the truth behind some of these stories that like these things do happen, that the militaries do go in here. Like they believe it when they'll watch it on a movie, when they'll do the Hurt Locker or something like that, where they'll make some Jason Bourne type movie. But then when it actually happens, people are just like naive to it, and it's crazy to me. And to hear you talk about this and like, you know, the dictatorships, the mass murder, the missing people, I'm like, how are we almost at that point in America? Are we almost to the point where...
I mean, it's pretty well known now that the U.S. has always been anti-people's movement, socialist movement, anti-left-wing sort of rise in Latin America. You know, whether you've seen it in El Salvador, in Paraguay, Uruguay, Argentina, Venezuela, Cuba, Bolivia. There's always been this anti-left rise, socialist movement, communism. They brand it that way. They're like, these are socialists, these are the communists, these are people that don't want democracy. But what they don't mention is that these are people's movements. These are movements that are from the poor, from the people, from the workers, from the farmers, from, so it's like, and every time that's sort of taken off in Latin America, it's been squashed.
Yeah, it always turns into that thing where it's like...
or attempted to be squashed.
It turns into a thing of, hey, you think we're bad. Look at these communist people over here. And it's like they make a movement or a group of people into like a dirty word. Like you can't say any of these things, these titles that these people have made to define themselves within their political views. It's like a slur. It's like, it's damn near calling someone the N-word. And it blows my mind that I'm like, because someone believes that things should be more equitable for everybody,
I mean, it's
they're
happening
horrible
right now,
people.
right? So Biden is saying like, oh, well, in Cuba, people are starving down there. They don't have freedoms. They don't have like democracy. But he fails to mention the U.S. embargo that has also been in fault of like why Cuba hasn't been able to thrive because it has no help at all. And then these embargoes have, prevented it from being able to actually flourish.
Dude, people think that America has done it all on its own. And you've already touched on it, like the copper within Chile. Like we are so dependent upon all these other countries and all these other places doing stuff to make us sustainable that we don't recognize that, if China goes down or if China switches up how they want to have their relationship within America, like we're screwed. If Africa isn't in the perpetual state of being like impoverished and only certain big companies or leaders being so selfish to take over stuff and do things in a certain way, we wouldn't have the minerals that we need to make microchips and to make we wouldn't be able to survive. Like America doesn't stand on its own. Like it definitely is. And sad to say, to a large extent, it's standing on the corpses of other countries' people and making all these other people pushed down by this, by whatever the system is that makes America great. Yeah. And
but you were just saying it was like, how this country did it itself, right? Through, you were saying microchip, right? Microchip technology came from what? The exploitation of the copper. Where? In Chile. What? Through the dictatorship.
Yep. And
so it's always on the backs of every, all of Latin America, where they've literally just like exploited every single country in Latin America to be able to stand on its own. Right?
Yeah. And it's once again that pretending that that America's the greatest, that when we do make these deals with other countries or whatever else, that we're doing it in such a way that basically like, yo, we're doing you a favor. Hey, you know what? You really need this infrastructure to be a suitable society, to be able to fit in. So let us give you this stuff. We're going to help you out. We're going to give you this aid and everything else. But then we're also going to take a little bit. We want some of these deals. We want to have exclusive rights to X, Y, and Z. We want to do these things. And it's just like, it's crazy how we pretend to help while we're taken advantage of. There's a term for that. when you, I don't know exactly what it is, where you pretend like you're helping someone when you're actually taking advantage of them. Like, do you know what I'm talking about, Missa? You scholarly person. Don't.
Sorry, I missed that last part, to be honest.
Oh, you're horrible.
V's still not on the call.
Okay. Yo, you check in with V.
Yeah.
See what we doing. I definitely I want to start talking about
If you
this.
repeat it, I will give you my scholarly answer.
No, the term when somebody is pretending like they are helping or they're helping a person out when they're actually taking advantage of them.
Gaslighting?
Is that
That's not technically gaslighting.
Helping a person when you're taking
Manipulating them?
manipulating? I mean, it's definitely a form of manipulation. I feel like there's a specific term for it, and if not, we should figure out what that is. Whoa! I love that I put my phone on silent, but yet it then still goes off. Told everyone else to silence their phones. It's funny because one of the Black elders, Miss Bird, is hitting me up. That has definitely done a lot within the movement, especially for Portland. It's a real world we live in. You need a fresher?
5 minutes. He said.
Okay. Do you need a little bit more of this cold dead stock water?
This is vodka. Yes, let's have some.
No, it's not vodka because the FCC would take us down since we're on the
I
radio.
always figured that's what they drink on talk shows. So
I mean,
water.
Is that why we got the whole entire Kanye West sway? You can't be right. You don't know sway. What was the famous line that he said? I love that look over here. You guys can't see me because of the computer monitors, but
Oh, I see.
okay.
We have your Zoom call up here.
Oh, we have the Zoom call?
No, I just meant like I can see through the TV.
Oh, okay. Got me all excited. Well, until we get V on, I was gonna save this for the other part, but I want to do it now since we're sitting up here talking about music, and I know we don't have the checklist, but I know that is at least one sitting up in here that I just said. I say sitting up here
There's been 4.
a lot. There's been 4. You've been keeping tally?
You're talking about your mom saying sit up here and harm people. There's a couple. Yeah, I have. Let's just
Wow.
say I have.
And I know you're not microphone trained, or sorry, I know you are microphone trained.
Whoa. Sorry, I didn't know if it was on. I was just
there was nothing wrong within that statement. Trying to get me in
I
trouble.
wasn't trained. Like I don't do this 3 times a week with you.
That's what you know what? It's too early for your sass.
It's a Friday.
It is a Friday. You know, this is once again we're about to have. It's supposed to be like 108 today. So it's the one thing I love about doing a morning show. We get it before we get it. So we out before noon. So you know, let's get up out of here. Especially because we have no AC in here.
Yeah, no, I felt that.
You felt that? Yeah. It's getting when you first come in, it's like cool and refreshing, and I was very excited about it because we don't get direct sunlight because we have this big window that you can come and see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was gonna be a lot cooler in here. I need to figure out.
It's crazy,
AC.
right? I mean, is this how Portland's gonna be now?
I mean, with global warming and everything else. Yeah, I mean, where's the rain? Where's the cooling off of the city?
I want to complain about rain. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to complain about it.
It being
Sweating.
too hot.
Yeah.
It's nuts because we live, like, for those who listen that aren't from Portland, we have a river that flows through here that no one goes to. That it's like there is a large body of water that we should have all the lake and shorefront, because it's not a beach, it's a shorefront events and stuff like that. And we have screwed up that waterway so much that people don't do it. You go further down, you go to Milwaukee or something like that, people are playing in the water and doing certain stuff. And, you know, the rich people with their boats are definitely doing it. But, yeah, there's no... Am I wrong about that?
No, you're right. Someone told me there's an algae bloom right now and it'll kill your dog. So you can't
Oh,
even bring
yeah.
Which happens almost like often in the summer because of the heat, and then I think it's because of the rain. Sometimes there's overflow of the sewage, or I guess their water pipes or whatever it is. I don't know the details of how it happened, but there's sometimes it gets dumped into the river. So occasionally, sometimes throughout the year, on heavy rains, they would tell us, like, you know, they would tell you don't get in the water because it's toxic right now, or whatever.
How are we?
But I think this is from heat. Yeah.
How are we, quote unquote, the rainy city? And yet we have so many problems with dealing with water. Did you hear about, like, we had a kind of like a Flint, Michigan issue where basically the water pipes in the schools were horrible, and some incident happened where all the pipes in these old buildings, don't spend money on schools to get them retrofitted or built up or anything else like that. Leave those horrible, crazy pipes, and there's like lead in the water. And kids were getting lead poison. Yeah, my daughter, when she was in grade school, she's in high school now. Maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, it went. I mean, the crazy thing about it, like, I don't mean to jump over, but this lasts for years. They were importing bottled water into the schools because the drinking fountains were unsafe for kids to drink out of. And I'm like, how much money does it cost to give kids water for the whole entire day, and to then more so than to not fix the pipes for years?
Yeah. I mean, it's.
I
don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Portland also has, that open reservoir over by the Japanese gardens. And, people just can sit up here and take a poop in there. And then there's E. coli in the water, and then you can't.
Was it years ago, like 5 or 6 years ago, they would shut down the water system because
all the bars would shut down.
Peeing into the reservoirs or something.
They would be, if you didn't have ice already in your bars, like if you had an ice system that produces ice, then you had to shut down because you didn't have ice. And I just find it hilarious, some of the problems that we have that no one's fixed. It blows my mind. It's like how we still have some of those racist laws and that are still on the books that no one's ever taken out. I'm like, you would think at this point that someone would just go through every state and their job to just take out all these crazy racist, hey, you have no black people can be living in this area, or sunset laws or whatever else. It's just nuts. Yeah. So we got V on?
Yeah, so we're dragging it to the Mac Mini, correct?
Yeah, drag it over to the Mac Mini, and then, double click, and then we can bring them on. And I will turn up the television on to the correct volume.
It's not dragging correctly.
Yeah, it's not dragging across now.
Because the screen's black.
Oh, you gotta press escape, remember?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So click on OBS and then press escape, and then you should be good. Yeah, we got this. I can't wait for this.
Yeah.
Oh, I dragged OBS over.
Is that a Zoom? Oh,
There's too
so
many windows.
But before we bring on V, so I usually I was trying to allude to this earlier. I usually ask this question of basically, who are your top 5 MCs? Because I'm gonna ask. That's the first thing I'm gonna ask V. Top 5
Really?
MCs.
I'd be the worst.
Oh no,
person to
bring
ask
them on.
Yeah.
We'll bring V on to this as well. Oh,
What's
wow.
up, V? Can you hear us?
Can you hear us, V?
No.
They didn't give you fair warning. Huh? Yeah, we can hear him. We got him. You good, V? Can you hear us? Oh, because you have the mic muted.
Oh, okay.
At the very bottom.
Go left, bam, and then double click the screen so it's also blown. Yep.
What up, V?
First Zoom call, guys.
Our first Zoom call. Look how technologically savvy we are. You might also be able to. I don't guess we don't need picture in picture. We don't need to see our faces. We good. Before we get into all the heaviness of the heavy, I was asking Rodrigo what his top 5 MCs are.
V, take it.
No, I already see that. I already love V because he has Most Def Black on Both Sides back there. And if you tell me that you're a part of this album, I swear to God, I'll walk out of this room immediately, fly to wherever you are, and give you the biggest hug. My threats are crappy at best. But no, yeah, top 5 MCs. Come on.
I don't know.
If you don't say Most Def right now, we're gonna fight.
Most Def, Sticks, Damn, that's a hard one.
You want me to give you mine so you can feel more enlightened about where I'm coming from with it? Yeah. All right, so my top 5 MCs, Most Def. I'm not gonna, not in order. This is just out there, and this is as of right now. Sometimes the list change, but Most Def, Jay-Z. I would now put on there Childish Gambino. I love him as a human being, as an artist in general. Black Thought. And it's I would say it's somewhat of a tie between, oh man, this is so hard to say. You know what? I'm gonna take the politically correct answer. Biggie. I was gonna go into a whole other direction. Biggie, and also J. Will the Damager, but that's a whole nother story. So what are yours?
I mean, I just have to go old school to where I started, right? Mm-hmm. So like Snoop Dogg,
fair.
Most Def, Stakes, but really just like Dead Prez, okay? Because they they were influential for me when I was young, and I have to say now I'll probably I'll add Childish Gambino as well into mine, and Schoolboy Q.
Schoolboy Q's I was gonna say Kendrick. Because I love.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
V, how do you feel about Kendrick Lamar?
I love Kendrick. I think that like having a top 5 is difficult, right? Because there are so many people that merit just being like in the conversation, right?
Mm-hmm. That's why I say it's of right now. It's of today. It can change tomorrow.
Moment, right?
Yeah. It can change. It can change from moment to moment. But yeah. But nah. So yeah. Who's on your top 5, V?
I mean, all time, I've always been a fan of like, Nas for obvious reasons, the poetry, Ghost from The Wu, love his stuff coming up as a young dude. Pharoah Monch, I think is a nasty lyricist. Black Thought, I think is incredible. And you know what? Like, you KRS, yo. I mean, the teacher.
Yo, the bridge is over? Yo, yeah, KRS forever. I love that there's a battle between KRS and why am I blanking out on this? Queensbridge. What oh my god.
MC Shan.
Yes. I couldn't but no, not even just that. As of more recent. Didn't he get in a battle with like
Joe Budden?
No, like Joe Budden's got in a battle with everybody. Didn't get in a battle with like Lupe Fiasco or something? Someone like that tried to challenge him, and it was horrible. It was like it was not a battle. It was just complete and utter destroying of a human being.
And if you're from the East Coast, right, as I am, I think a lot of people would put Kiss, in that stratosphere, given what he single-handedly did to Dipset, you know what I'm saying? Like last week.
We had such a beautiful relationship, and then you had to sit up here and bring in this nonsense. It's always it's not Dipset, it's Dripset, and you're on the morning drip. That's what it is. Just so you know.
Yeah, I know, yo. You got to market turf, right? Everybody has to kind of like,
Yeah.
It's so much. P.S. Sam, is V sounding good through
Yeah, he sounds good. The only thing there's a big glare on the screen.
There's a big glare. You know what? Go ahead, shut those curtains. Rodrigo, if you can do me a favor.
Yeah.
Can you shut that random curtain that I left open? Don't worry, we are always a hot mess on the show.
Let's take it out in post.
No, we leave it in.
Hot mess.
All the craziness we leave in. But yes. You're going to be stuck on that tape. This is going to be so funny to watch Sam do. I love just watching the show. Then Fortunato. We officially, I know you can't see this, V, but our maintenance man for the building loves to just come up to the window because we have a big big storefront because we try to do it like Do the Right Thing. Like the show's kind of inspired by Samuel L. Jackson, aka Senor Love Daddy, in that show. And the Chinatown block is kind of crazy, so we definitely have the whole entire vibe of a radio station on the block. You can see into it, you know, go talk to the DJ if you wanted to. But our maintenance man just loves to come up and just stare. Just stares dead in the eyes and look at us crazy. And I'm just like, hey man, like I appreciate you. Thank you for coming through and listening, getting a cup of coffee, but can you go away?
And you missed it earlier, but there was a guy smoking something out of tin foil behind your car.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yo, we really about the streets. That's where we from. That's also slightly why I keep the window open so I can make sure no one breaks into my car. I gotta say truck. I have a truck. I don't have a car. I have a truck. But anyways, V, tell us a little bit about yourself, because I just really want to dive into this interview. I just really want to find out about this documentary. But tell us about yourself first. Where are you from?
Well, I was originally born in Chile, in South America, but came to New York City when I was a young boy with my family, just leaving like a whole bunch of like political craziness down there, you know. And arrived in New York City, grew up in the city. You know, I'm a Queens kid. Later became a Brooklyn kid. Found my path through like writing graffiti on the trains, right? Then became a hip-hop journalist somewhere in the 90s, and you know, and always became kind of like, always was down to activism, like working inside, did a lot of work inside prisons, just like doing like screenings of films and teaching people in prison how to create their own media. And then also creating my own media as well, right? And so I moved as a documentary filmmaker, and I just finished producing this feature-length documentary called Primera that just chronicles just like the social uprising in Chile over the past 18 months. And, you know, my man Rodrigo was here. He had been going to Chile on his own, but we were able to like kind of like lock horns and go on a trip together. And, you know, so he could see for himself just the real deal down there. And I'm sure he told you a little bit about what he experienced.
No. We've been saving it for you. I've heard in previous other chats a little bit of the experience, but I told him to try to leave it as a surprise. So you can delve as deep as you want to within any part of the story. But what? So first off, this recent documentary that you did, what is the name of said documentary?
Sure. So the documentary is called Primera, which means first, right? In English. And it's the story of how a student-led movement over a 30-cent fare hike, right, in Chile's subway system catapulted an entire nation to demand like equity, dignity in healthcare, education, housing, right? And then, you know, after the military, right, was sent in to like squash 16-year-old and 17-year-old high school demonstrators, the people in Chile were like, oh, hell no. Like, this is like egregious. Mm-hmm. And then millions of Chileans took to the streets in late 2019 and just like never let go of the streets, man. And like the rally cry for like the 30-cent like fare hike turned into like, let's get rid of 30 years of like economic and political repression. And then boom, like over the next like 3 to 4 months, like everybody hit the streets. It was a combination of like Occupy everything, right? And protest and carnival. Because, you know, people in Latin America, man, when we go out to the streets, like the protest is also a party, you know what I'm saying? So here's the marching band, here's like the full orchestra, right? And here are people protesting. And over here, we got everybody in the front lines fighting the cops, right? And then COVID came, and COVID kind of like was supposed to like squash everything. People still hit the streets, and eventually demanded that the government address all these issues, all of them, by scrapping the old constitution that was written by a military dictator named Pinochet. And they were like, you know what, let's write a new one. Mm-hmm. And we're gonna kind of like make sure that the Constitution is written by everyday people. So we're going to push the government to call a national vote to have a new Constitution, and the writers have to be everyday people. No one who is down with the political party can run to be a writer. And the documentary kind of captures all of that over 12 months.
Wow. Wow. I mean,
okay,
I kind of asked Rodrigo this earlier. Can you give context to the more than just what happened within the recent I don't know what you call it, we say revolution, more so what's been going on in Chile overall? Can you hear me? Okay, just I mean like in like the kind of like this. There's the fair hike and there's all that stuff, but what else has happened within to make the political climate what it is? Because I don't think a lot of people know. Like I don't know. I know just like just a brief summation of what you just told us, but like kind of what is it like out there? Is it like before what just happened with the fair hike and everything?
I mean, look, if you don't mind, let me rephrase it like this, right? Across like the last 5 years, right? I think ever since, Eric Garner tragically lost his life at the hands of an NYPD officer, right? People have been up at arms, man, around everything that's been happening in the country. And, like demanding justice, right? Racial justice on the streets. And think of like, if all that energy, right, focused on changing the Constitution of the US, scrapping the Bill of Rights, and saying, hey, if we want true racial justice, why are we effing around with like maybe like changing a law or like, like evicting or getting rid of a politician? Why don't we just go to the source of all the problems, right? And then rewrite the Constitution from the perspective of where we are right now in the world. And that is what happened in Chile. So instead of like focusing always on like a victory of like changing a law or reforming something, they were like, let's just write a new social contract. But in order to do that, you got to put intense pressure. It can't be like a protest where you're out for 2 weeks and then a politician comes, makes a press release, press conference and says, hey, we're going to address the problem. In Chile, it got to the point that if you were from a political party, you would not be allowed to even have a word. Like they didn't even want to listen to political parties. Like, so it was like, look, it's either all or nothing. And then when you put relentless pressure, we're talking about people hitting the streets for 6 months straight. Now imagine if we did that, 6 months. We're like, all right, some people got to go to work, but you're going to show up. And relentless pressure, right? And I think that like when you feel like you're up against everything, right, and you really want to change, that's what happened over there. So when we would go to Chile to film, when we were there, it was just like a constant battle. You would go to the streets and like, you'd be like, yo, the streets belong to the people here, right? There's like a new, I think similar to what Rodrigo and the comrades and everybody in Portland kind of experienced, right? It was like the same thing, like let's reoccupy public space. This is where we're gonna not only meet to talk about what we want to do, but this is where we're gonna educate our kids. This is where we're gonna have our common meals and fuck around. And people need to like sleep over here tonight. We're gonna sleep over here tonight, right? And we're gonna keep doing it.
But I think I think you explained it. I think the difference though in what was going on in Chile is that was a social movement that included the people. And when I say the people, it's not just the youth, but the elderly, the workers, the farmers, the working class, like the mothers, the fathers, including the children. You know what I mean? Everybody was going out there. Everybody was taking the streets. Everybody wanted real change because they were affected by the system that was predominantly pushing everyone down, right? So you had to, it kind of like, it's sort of like that squeeze bottle, you know what I'm saying? Like everybody just felt that pressure and was just like, we need to take the streets. And I'm not saying I don't want to say that Portland didn't have that. I just felt like it's there's a lot of young people that were taking the streets, but not the people of Portland.
Let me go ahead and say it.
Yeah.
It wasn't that here in Portland. Like, because from what I'm feeling like, what you're saying, V, is that it was all of Chile that came out. Like, there wasn't anyone left. The people that had to work to make the city run so you can get to feed yourself and to whatever, sounds like they had to do that, but after they got off work, they're out in the battlefield. Yeah. Portland, it wasn't like that. Portland, it was definitely, at a certain point, several thousand people, and they marched, but it was one of those things that, and we kind of touched on this earlier, we didn't have leaders within that said movement to keep that focus going in a certain direction. It all of a sudden became a bunch of different groups co-opting a moment to make it be their shine. And it turns into being like, some people wanted reform, some people wanted abolition, some people wanted anarchy. It no longer was focused in Portland on a specific thing. Some people were just solely like, hey, we need mutual aid and we need to do this. And then LGBT rights or the recognizing of BIPOC within the trans community. It became so many things that it became nothing. That the voice of everybody trying to speak about their social currency and what they felt like they were owed, at least to me, it felt like it muted the actual message that needed to be delivered, which was, and we got homegirl over here, I know you can't see it, but Angela Davis, power to the people. And I love the energy that Portland put out. I love the energy that Portland created. I was out in those streets for a very, very long time. I'm a little bit jaded, and it's hard for me because I put my all into it when I was out there. But I do look at other revolutions and other movements that have happened, and sometimes I was just wanting to kick Portland in the butt and just be like, come on, we got to do this. We have too many people dying. And we kept having people die. And now we're having, out here in Portland, we're having 2 members of the Wu-Tang Clan's family actually got shot and killed in Portland just like 2 days ago.
This weekend, yeah. This past weekend.
So.
Yeah, there's been a lot of increasing shootings on a daily basis in Portland. I don't know. I mean, I have theories and thoughts of like where and why it's rising, but it's getting pretty bad from what it seems. And then
they're going to use the excuse with the cops, though.
Recent shooting was kind of focused on an area. They were like, oh, this area has like homeless camps and there's violence. But when it came out, it sounds like it was there were a lot of people that were caught, innocent bystanders, through what seemed like a drive-by shooting of some sort, or
I'm gonna say
mass shooting, because it was.
You kind of touched on this earlier, Rodrigo. The CIA element of it, and I'm not saying that the cops are going out shooting people or something like that, but there's things that you can do to manipulate communities to make things harder and tougher and put pressure on there. And it feels like that is what's happening right now within certain communities within Portland, and that pressure is being put on. The eviction, the moratorium is in a critical state right now, and we don't know what's about to happen with that. I think there's just being weird pressure applied to Portland within certain areas that are making these things go crazy. And a lot of the youth that were out there all riled up, I feel like are disappointed within the end result, within where we're at least, not the end result because it's not over, but where we're at right now.
I had a question though for V. Like, in your thoughts, what do you think would take for this country to get at that level of social movement that Chile has? I mean, I know that the historical contexts are very different, right? But like, what would it take for us to be able to really rile up the people, for everyone to take the streets?
Well, I think it's like understanding like what it is that you want to change, right? And like really understanding like how that's going to benefit people long term. One of the interesting things about like looking at what's been happening here in this country, in the US, is that the private sector was very quick to respond, right, to the BLM movement. I was like in shock, right, when I started watching NBA games and I would see BLM on the basketball courts. And I said to myself, okay, why is that happening, right? Why is the private sector responding quicker than the state, right? And then I thought, well, the private sector is interested in getting more customers. They're like the biggest, like crack dealer on the street. They want people to keep buying stuff, right? So then if that's the case, you're not gonna want to alienate consumers. So the best thing to do is to let the consumers know, hey, we're with you, right? So I was like, all right, but so then like, if we are protesting on the street, right, then who do we perceive to be the solver of the problem? Is it the state? Are we always asking the state to like make the world a happier place for us? And the answer is no, right? And then we all buy stuff, right? So maybe is it the private sector, or is it like the underlying structure that keeps those two entities in power?
Yeah.
And if so, right, how do we reimagine, right, what dignified relationships look between us as neighbors, between us and our marketplace, right? And I think like if we can go that deep and say, you know what, this is what I want my life to be. And that's a hard work. It can take 3 generations to get there, right? Then people have that common goal. And I think one of the things that did happen in Chile, since Chile had come out of a military dictatorship, like less than 30 years ago, it was still fresh in people's mind that they definitely did not want the state, like being violent towards people. And 30 years later, they're like, holy shit, everything really costs a lot of money here. So it was like, we don't want the state and things are too expensive. And they were able to kind of put those two things together and say, what keeps that system in place? The Constitution. It protects the state and it protects the capital interest. So let's go at the Constitution. It was kind of doing detective work, right? What is the root of the problem?
Yeah.
And I think it's not even that complicated sometimes, right?
Yo, the Constitution is a social contract between the government and its people. And it's rules and guidelines that are set that everyone can agree upon. If inherently you have flaws within said contract that only suits the interests of one side or one group of people, it's like when you have a contract and in the fine print, it sits up here and voids everything that else was said. So that's that 3/5 of a person, but all men are created equal. It can't be both. It can't.
And what does it really mean to like the right to own property, right? Period, right? What does that really mean? And then the right to bear arms. Like those two things, right, set off a whole bunch of stuff in motion. Like, what do you need to own property? Money. How do you get money? Oh, you have to work. Oh, is there anything there about investing and making money? And then how do you teach people how to make money? Oh, we're gonna leave that part out, right? And then the right to bear arms to protect the property that I just bought for myself, right? Mm-hmm. I'm gonna have a gun, and then guess what? We're gonna have like a police that's gonna, police who comes near my property. And as you just mentioned very eloquently, 100 years ago, those were human beings, right? that labored on the property grounds. And I'm gonna create a police force to go catch them all once they want their freedom. Mm-hmm. So the Constitution is critical because it sets in motion everything, these rights. And if you think about it, right, how many people from our own communities will say, well, I bought it, it's mine. Step off, right?
Yeah. Sam, you gotta turn down your headphones a little bit if you don't have them on.
And I'm not a communist and I'm not a socialist. I am just somebody who is critically thinking about making our relationships with each other more equitable.
But see, that's the thing. We talked about this earlier. Making communist, socialist, even being radicalized or anything else like that is these terms that have all of a sudden become so negative when it just described a group of people with a different way of thinking. It's like, it's almost like saying you're a religion in a certain way. It's like, oh, you're Mormon? That says a lot about you. It's like, nah, I'm just Mormon. I'm just Jewish. I'm whatever these things are. The fact that it makes you have a stereotypical thought of this person and what they are, like we're not complicated human beings within this, is on you. That's your mistake. But it's also on me to help educate you to fix that. And I think that's a huge thing within people that right now that's going on. We choose not to show and educate people about the truth about a situation. Well, and that's the exact opposite, which I'm going to lump a large group of people together. That's what Christian white people do. They go to other markets, they go to other places, they go and preach their truth and convince people about them and why they're not only right, but why they're also, their narrative is the only narrative to truly live by.
Colonizing.
It's colonizing. But I love where we're going, but there's some crazy stuff that y'all need to talk about this documentary, what you went through, and I know that we're getting short on time, and I don't want to miss you guys explaining what you went through within making this documentary and more in depth about it. So please.
Well, I'll set it up for Rodrigo, man, to tell the story, but I'm going to segue from the point that you just made. Mm-hmm. Education and communicating the stories of the people is vital. And in the absence of like equitable news coverage, right, it's important that we do that work ourselves. And that's why many of us, right, work as independent journalists. So when we were completing the film, my homegirl, Taryn Gonzalez, and my boy, Rod Stars, we had a conversation around like, hey, we need to start sharing what's happening here with our homies back home, right? Like, we just can't keep kind of telling them the story. So then we were like, yo, let's just kind of like, you know, stack some of our chips together and let's just bring a contingency of like homies out to Chile, you know, as Chile was kind of like undergoing this kind of revolutionary process. So through the homie Rod Stars, right, I got connected to Rodrigo, right? And then Rodrigo was part of a culture exchange, right, of 5 other brothers and sisters from like New York, from like the Southwest, right? For security reasons, I'm not going to mention their names, right? Who we invited to go to Chile to just meet with the people on the ground, meet with some of the folks on the indigenous side who are doing like really great work. And then I'll let Rodrigo take it from here. Like, what happened?
Right before you go, I just realized something. Community is based out of communication. Like literally the word has that root in it. And it's sometimes, I think that we need to, as people, re-educate ourselves that you can't be part of a community without communication. But go ahead, Rodrigo.
Yeah, no, I mean, to me, that was essentially something that I was really interested in partaking in is not only just hearing the story about what's happening down there, even though I've had a little bit of experience with it in the past, I didn't really have a lot of experience with what was going on in Santiago itself, right? So, like, we'll talk about the Mapuche later, but, like, I think for me, it was just, you know, right off the bat, it felt like remember that show Real World? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? When you show up to a house and it's just a bunch of people that you don't like know before, but you get to like talk to each other and like meet and then like, you know, have a common ground with, you know, and everyone had something great to offer, you know, so it was very exciting, you know, to show up to this house and then you'd walk around the house and be like, hey, what's up, and blah, blah, blah from this area. And you know, and I've done this and I've done that. And like, it was just, it was very exciting, you know, because there was a lot of nervousness about traveling in general at first because of COVID, because it was, you know, it was extremely difficult to get there.
You did this during COVID.
Yeah, I know. Luckily for me at the time too, I was vaccinated, so it was I felt a little more comfortable about traveling. But in general, it was difficult to get in, you know. So there was a lot of loopholes and a lot of things, arguing with the Delta, you know, people at the entrance just being like, just let me on this flight, you know what I mean? Like I have all my paperwork, and it took me like 2 days, but I got there, right? And you know, we got there, we got to meet everyone, and you know, at the time, it was, I think the day before the International Women's March that was going on March 8th, I believe. Yeah. And we were going to head down to this area called Plaza de la Dignidad, the Dignity Plaza, where it's been the center of a lot of the street actions and, like, gatherings in Santiago. So we went down there to kind of see, like, what people were doing, and there was, like, a huge movement, you know, a lot of people, thousands of people, I want to say, gathering together, and like I think their attempts were just like, you know, to sort of do what they've been doing for like the last 18 months, you know? So we got to see that, and coming from, you know, from the street actions in Portland, I sort of came in kind of feeling like, oh yeah, I'm ready for this. You know what I mean?
I know what's going on.
But it's different. It's a lot more intense in another way. You know what I mean? Like here, the cops are you know, they show up, they throw gas, and they, you know, they'll run after you, they'll push you out, you'll do the cat and mouse thing. There, they show up for the most part right off the bat in vehicles that look like they're like from like some dystopian like
RoboCop. The Mad Max,
like Mad Max vehicles, you know, coming out with like that are all like covered up. You can't even see what's inside of them or who's inside of it, and there's just like, you know, water coming out of it, and they're shooting it at people. But you know, but the people are also kind of pushing back, you know, and so there was like instantly just like rocks flying over your head and Molotovs coming out.
Vehicles.
Huh?
It's
wild,
nuts.
man. It's
like,
wild.
What do you need that for?
And I mean, it's funny. You see that, you know, in Ferguson, you saw that, you know, you see that in some cities. Here in Portland, we didn't really see that much, maybe because we have smaller streets. I guess they can't fit those vehicles. But like, so it's just, you know, foot soldiers. But like, so that was my, you know, our experience on the first day. And it was, you know, with all the cautions, you know, that was like, hey, you know, just, you know, things are hot down here. Things are really intense, you know, just, you know, watch your back and be just smart, you know, take your risk assessment, you know. So that was the first day, and it sort of felt like, okay, you know, I got this. I understand, like I could, you know, do this. We decided to travel down south to kind of like really kind of come to understand and encompass one of the most important aspects of like the Chilean movement too, is the Mapuche indigenous movement that's going down in the southern part of Chile, which is under a military occupation, which I had talked about a little bit before. Yeah. You know, people that are reclaiming land, they're reclaiming identity, they're reclaiming their Mapuche like culture. And so that sets the pretext for like what is going on in Chile, you know, like where it all started. Yeah. Where I believe like the Mapuche are the sort of the original, like the first resistance. And so we headed down there to meet some communities and talk to people and just kind of get a feel of the land. But there's a feeling and an understanding now that Chile, is the government and sort of the powers that be there, are very apprehensive and believe that there's a foreign, how can I put this, intervention, or like a foreign entity that's coming out, like foreigners are coming in and trying to have influence.
Yeah, incite.
Yeah, incite violence, incite things. So there was a feeling that that's, you know, we were just gonna maybe just, I don't know, be watched somehow. You know what I'm saying? And so then, yeah, so we came back from that trip, headed back to Santiago, and we were coming off the plane, and these officers came up to us, these PDI officers, which are like what, like DHS agents, sort of like.
No, they're the FBI
of Chile. They pulled 6 of us aside coming out of the flight, and you know that they knew who we were because they were looking at their phones, and there were 6 of them for 6 of us. And specifically, because I noticed that they were there, and I kind of like had a bad feeling about it, so I kind of like put my head down and just kind of walked straight, you know, planning to sort of like, you know, cross him and just be like, peace, you know? Yeah. But he stopped me, and he's like, oh, excuse me, like, you know, welcome to Santiago. Can I see your passport? And I was like, yeah, what's up? What's going on? And he's like, you know, just curious when and how long you've been in the country. And I was like,
what kind of question?
I don't know. What kind of question is that? I was like, I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 days. I don't know. You know, what's the deal? And he was like saying something about like, you know, like I had something about quarantine. You know what I'm saying? Like he was just like you're supposed to be in quarantine or something like that. And I was like, yeah, but I had all our paperwork. Like you know, I had my vaccine, I had my PCR test. I was like, yeah, I don't see what the problem is. But he set us aside and he sent us into a detention center at the airport, where then they processed us and accused us of violating a health code violation, basically. And so because of that, we were going to live and we were going to be placed in a sanitary hotel for the remaining days that we had or whatever in our quarantine.
Yeah.
We spent 3 nights there before finally being able to be let out, thanks to V, who had connections to some lawyers with...
Shout out V.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that from the beginning that we had to have all the resources and the ability to be able to help us through the situation, because things are hot down there, things are really intense, and specifically not only just because of COVID, but in general, they don't want foreigners messing around down there.
Yeah,
and to me, it's a threat to them that a black and brown delegation that is connected to social movements in the U.S. is traveling down there to connect to other people down there that are going through their own social movements and bridge that gap. That's a threat, and it's an international threat to them.
Yo, having Portlanders right now come to your, then come to your city or whatever else. It's like, nah, nah, homie. We know what y'all did over there. You ain't bringing you ain't bringing that to Bed-Stuy. You're not bringing that over here. So yeah.
And you know what? That's our role as community organizers, right? Is that a whole generation could pass you by, and you not connect to people in your own community that are doing movement building work. So I come from the school of thought that you build that bridge, right? And then you build that bridge as you're building the community. And for us, we were sometimes America, and I'm part of it too, we can't get caught up in our own stuff, which is important, right? But it's important not to forget that there's other stuff happening in and around the world that's connected to all the things that are happening here. I'll give you one quick example. The tear gas canisters that are being used by the Chilean police. I gotta go.
Hold on.
Wow.
Uh-oh.
Even after you put it on.
Yo.
We got an emergency alert.
I would have just loved it right now. That would have happened, and then a SWAT team would have just ran in here and we are the oh my God, I can't even say it.
Chilean
Delegation. We stopping this whole entire broadcast.
Yo, Rodrigo, the PDI shows up right outside the studio, right?
Yeah. Yo.
Sapos are waiting for me outside right now. Man.
Yeah. But you were lightly touching on this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay, so look, if I can, I just wanted to finish that thought because I think it is important to share, right? The weapons that are being used to repress people in Chile are manufactured in the United States. And those weapons are sold, right, to developing nations, right, to governments that want to repress its citizens, right? And as a student of history, we know that conflict is good for the American economy. You become a superpower, right, by selling, right, equipment that helps other people stay in power. So then when people talk about hey, I don't know what's happening in South Africa or West Africa or the Caribbean or Central America, South America, it's not relatable to me. Of course it is, right? Because there are people who are feeding their families, right, by working, right, maybe 60 hours a week, right, maybe themselves having an undignified wage, right, to build weapons that are used to kill other people. So then it is all connected. And then I think if we really want to do that international movement building, here in our context, it is necessary to have a foreign policy framework. We cannot be talking about racial justice in this country, right, and thinking that it's only applicable to the people within these borders. It is all connected. Right now, there are people who are crossing the border here, right, through Mexico, through Canada on a ship. And there are people who have brown skin and black skin, right? And they're going to come in here and be part of our society. And they're coming here, guess what? Because somebody fucked it up over there, right?
The weapons that we manufactured over here got sent to their homeland, so they had to then run from their homeland to over here because this is the only place safe for them. That is the most ingenious way to do to gentrify other neighborhoods or to do a real estate scheme of being like, hey, yo, man, I'm gonna burn down your house, so you got to come over here and buy one of mine. Like that's what it is. And
when you come here, I'm gonna create a border patrol, and I'm gonna create an economy around stopping you from coming in here. Mm-hmm. Like, think about the economy of just the movement of people. So I'm gonna burn down your house. I'm gonna inspire you to come here, but I'm gonna create these hurdles for you to get here, right? And then all those hurdles are tied to the economy of other people. And those people also gotta buy healthcare and have to buy all these other services to maintain their families.
Yeah, I want to get back to what you were talking about, but yeah, I'm just going to, yes, please continue the story.
It's, essentially, like, that's where we're at with this. That's where we were at with what happened. I mean, it's when we got out of that, the sanitary hotel, Nova Park Hotel is what it was called. Yeah. It was, we were getting tour of, like, places, torture camps in Santiago that were used during the dictatorship, like where thousands of people went missing, thousands of them were murdered. And getting a conversation with people that had been affected during the dictatorship to talk about the levels of repression and tactics that were used on them during that time, while at the same time lightly experiencing a little bit of that as well. It was like a full-on experience, because as soon as we got out of the hotel, PDI agents showed up and were like, because you broke a health code violation because of COVID, needless to say, we also passed another PCR test, and I was still vaccinated. But they were like, we're just going to, and they played it out in the most easy way. They're like, listen, we're just going to buy you a ticket to go back home, and you'll get to go home a little early, but because of the health code violation, we're going to have to ask you to leave, And I'm like, that's not legal, right? That doesn't seem legal to me. Mm-hmm. So we got the lawyers involved, and they were like, no, that's not legal. And they helped us get out of the hotel. Yeah. But they were still, the PDI agents were still like, we'll call you in 3 days to let you know when your flights are ready. So we got, lawyers involved, and we got, attempted to try to, like, stop that deportation. And we didn't hear from them, but we saw them. And they manifested themselves in ways where they were following us everywhere we went, very blatantly, too. Like, they weren't just, like, tracking you and keeping, like, tabs on you.
Baseball cap,
you know what I'm saying? No, it's like newspaper. It was like the most obvious way too. My friend Camilo, who was just down here from Chile, he actually mentioned a story that happened to him. Very similar. Red truck shows up, blatantly shows up, and, like, is at the end of the street watching you. It's been following you. As soon as he acknowledged that, hey, this person is following me, they took off and then realized there were other vehicles nearby. They were also watching us. And so all of that stuff was just, it creates fear. It creates a sense of insecurity. It makes you feel like you're like, you know what? I'm cool. I'll leave. Mm-hmm. Right? Because you're like, I don't know where, because we're getting, tours of a torture camp being like, this is how they treated people and disappeared them. And when we were detained the first time, when they asked me if I had any tattoos on me, or they asked me, do you have any markings on you that we could identify you in case you go missing? And I'm like, that's a wild thing to be asking somebody.
So essentially, right? They kidnap you, try to use COVID as the excuse of why we're like, hey, we're going to put you in this hotel. You can't go anywhere. And then after you're in said isolation room, they then push you to be like, hey, you need to leave now. Whatever you guys are doing, you trying to make your delegation the black and brown. We ain't really doing that. So how about you leave? P.S. Let us get some snapshots of your tattoos just in case you decide to ever try to come back. We know exactly who you are.
Yeah. And it was unnerving, It was definitely like 2 days, 3 days of just constant harassing, and you could see it, people pretending to, like, be a couple, taking photos of themselves, selfies, pointing the cameras at you, but it also created a sense of paranoia that, like, made me question how much of it was true. And a lot of it was because I was like, this can't possibly be real, right? I mean, it's too obvious, and it's also just kind of like, why, dude? I thought this was a health code violation. Why are you spending all of these resources
to follow me
in a country that is currently in turmoil, that it's like people are starving, and you're using all of these resources to suppress a bunch of like young activists from the U.S. to just basically learn. We're basically there to learn, to experience, to talk to people.
Information is power.
Right.
Information is power. And I know V's like, you sitting up here shaking your head. I know you.
It's just making me think, man. Like, I mean, it's I'm reflecting on the things that Rodrigo was mentioning, because it's sad, man. Because at the end of the day, it was just like people wanting to share an experience, right? It's like, hey, you want to come over to my house? You want to come over to my block and see what's popping, right? Like, there was no malicious intent. It's not like we went there with the master plan to like undo capitalism, right? It was an exchange. It was like, let's just go and like see what the
That's what you say. We know what you were there for, V. We know what you were there for. We know what V stands for. Remember the 5th of November. We know what's going down.
Yeah, man, exactly. I was there. It was just a master plot, man. I had it all planned out, and then COVID screwed it up. But you know, major shout out to Rodrigo. He'll tell the rest of the story, because he and the other folks actually got escorted by the PDI, Chile's FBI, on the plane. And I'll let you tell the story, the major shout-out story of what you did once you reached American soil.
So basically, you know, what happened on that Wednesday, we got out Sunday from the hotel. Monday, Tuesday, they were following us around. Tuesday night, I kind of had a bad feeling. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, we hadn't heard from them. We hadn't received any emails. We knew the lawyers were working out like the stop order and stuff, everything. But there was still that feeling. I was like, I feel like we're going to hear about them tomorrow, you know? And I kind of slept really weird. I was like, man, I can't really sleep tonight. And like, I was just kind of tossing and turning. And then all of a sudden at about 6 a.m, I just hear bum, 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 bum. And I was like, you know, kind of opening my eyes and being like, what? Bum, 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 bum. Like, and the noise of like a bus or something outside, like commotion, you know? And I'm like, and like part of me probably was like, nope. Not going to do this. Go back to sleep. So I went back to sleep. I woke up to the doorbell ringing and the more pounding. And I just knew. And I looked at it through the crack of the window. I saw some badges, and I was like, there it is. So I just started packing up my bags. And just knowing what this could entail, you know, I was like, just pack up your bags and see where it goes, you know. We left our bags there because I was still kind of like expecting to come back home. I was like, I'm like, you'll come back to the, you know, to our place that we were staying. So, you know, we go to the door and they're instantly like, nope, they got to go like right now. They have a charter bus. They have agents fully armed, assault rifles, plates, a door rammer.
Yo, they were ready to bust in?
They were ready to bust in for a health code violation, right? So then they get us out, they take our phones, they take our passports, and they put us on a bus separate from each other with an armed agent next to us. Then after that, we head to this warehouse, kind of like detention place, where then we are basically given like a little bit of coffee and some water and some bread, cheese, and ham is what I like to say. That is a very delicacy.
What is that? A courgette or a bruschetta? A what?
A charcuterie board.
Hey, we're gonna kidnap you and basically hold you prisoner, not only in this hotel, but now we're gonna have armed guards on this bus and everything else. But here's a charcuterie board.
Yeah.
Got to make sure you talk nice about us when you get back home.
But, you know, so then after that, it was just like a big game of like, you know, talking to the lawyers, trying to get the stop orders, them being like, well, you guys are going to leave anyways. So like when nobody wanted to talk. Nobody wanted to say anything. I just shut up. Like it was like a thing where it's like I instantly just went mute.
Yeah.
The only time I ever really did say something was when they attempted to take my shoelaces and my belt away. And And I was like, these are high ceilings in an area where I'm with everyone. And what do you think I'm going to do with my shoelaces and belt, you know? So I fought it, and I was like, no, why? Like, I want to talk to my lawyer, you know? And they're like, okay, fine, talk to him. And as soon as I got the phone out, they were like, all right, never mind. Just keep your belt and shoelaces. Like, yeah, I am. Right? You're not gonna do whatever you're doing right now. It's just like you're not gonna do it, right? You're not gonna just humiliate me and scare me. And I'm like, you already like have me, right? I have nowhere to go. I have no way to get out of here at this point, right? So then I'm at the whim of like the legal system, right? And so now, after waiting for several hours, I think we were there for like 5-6 hours or something like that. Eventually, a judge that had attempted to make a stop order. That I think the PDI agents took wind of. Miraculously, the judge decided to not file that order. And with nothing else to do, the agents were like, let's go. You're going right now. And at that point, they were so mad at us for just like, you know, being just so difficult, I guess, for them, that they threatened us to cuff us. They were like, they took us to the airport where they're going to be like, now you're going to all be separated. And I was like, where am I going? They're like, doesn't matter. You're going back to the U.S. And so we all get separated. I get left by myself, right? And I mean, it was like a level of just anger and also just like fear and also just kind of like, I mean, I was mute. I was just like no emotions, nothing. I was just quiet. You know, I didn't talk to they assigned us 2 agents per person. Mm-hmm. I got on a flight, and it wasn't until I got to the plane that I realized I was going to Miami. Yeah. So then the whole time they're like, we're going to put like handcuffs on you if the pilot feels like you're a threat. I mean, that kind of wordage, you know what I mean? And so they did it all the way to the 10-hour flight. We flew to Miami. We go through customs where they attempted to turn me into U.S. Customs, and they were like, this is our detainee because of blah, blah, blah. And the U.S. Customs was like, you know what? They're American citizens. He's an American citizen. I can't do anything about this. Whatever he did in your country it's, you know, this is something that doesn't happen. So I don't know, like, what you expect us to do, but like, you can't do that to him. He's in American soil. And I knew that as soon as those wheels landed, in fact, as soon as I got on that plane, that I was now on U.S. soil. Like, they had no jurisdiction over me. So at that point, things switched up. I looked at them and I was like, give me my fucking phone and give me my passport back. And then I started yelling at the U.S. Customs person that these people had kidnapped me and that I had been kidnapped for the last 36 hours and I had no access to my family or friends. They took my passport. This U.S. Customs dude was so scared. He was like, I don't even know what to tell you right now, man. That doesn't even make any sense to me. Like, how? And at that point, those agents had walked away. So what I did is I followed them, got my phone out, and just started filming them throughout the airport, yelling at everybody that was around us that was like, these 2 agents are Chilean FBI agents who have kidnapped me and just dropped me off in Miami.
With none of your stuff.
With none of my, I mean, like, no access to, like, I mean, no way to get home. You know what I'm saying? Like, our stuff, luckily, was eventually, like, ended up down there. And then I ended up finding out that all 6 of us, in 3 different flights, flew to Miami. They took 12 agents with them, who then vacationed for 3 days in Miami on the dime of the Chilean people. You know? And so, with no quarantine or anything. Why? Because this was never about COVID. This was never about COVID.
It's never about COVID. Never. And then the irony of it all, right, is that like you thought you were going to get a free vacation by scaring, right, this contingency of Black and brown folks, right? And then you yourself, right, are like kind of like not white. And then imagine had they shown up by Miami as regular civilians and they get harassed by police, right? Because they don't look like the traditional American citizen or because they don't speak English. So, things are ultimately connected, right? Like you have power in your country because you signed up to be part of the team and they gave you a badge and a gun. And now you can repress other people that look like you. You might have like shared history in common. And then you come to the empire over here and then they're like, we don't know who you are. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's all interconnected, man. People think you have power because the state grants you like a badge, right? But it's illusionary. It's illusionary,
That is wild. And I just. Why is he? Our maintenance man is crazy. Did he just knock on the window?
Hey, folks, man, fellas, I got to run. Thank you for having me, man. Rodrigo, much respect, love, and props.
Same, man.
Thank you, brother, for like having me on the podcast. And I look forward to sharing more news about the documentary and look forward to like screening it again in that area. And whenever y'all in New York, just hit us up.
Yeah, definitely. I will. Thank you.
V, you're a real homie, man. Peace, bro.
Yep. Peace. Oh, you got to switch that screen back. Thank you. I saw too many versions of the back of my neck, and I was like, I can't deal with that. I can't deal with that. Man, yeah. You went on an adventure.
We got a full Chilean experience of the what we ended up real quick. We ended up meeting up in one of the torture camps called Villa Grimaldi, where a lot of people were like ciphered through and lost their lives in those camps by a person that went through that camp and spent a year in there. When we got out of the hotel and before all that stuff happened by the end of the trip, he told us that he was like, looks like you guys have experienced a little bit of the dictatorship light.
You got the light
repression
version.
Light. They're like, this is a little bit of like what goes on with us every day. When we had a vehicle chase us down the highway and we were trying to lose it, and we ended up like flying down the highway, getting into the emergency lanes, and just kind of trying to just kind of give distance and get this truck that just kept following us, losing it, ending up in a little neighborhood, and getting out. And just being like, I'm like, scared. I'm like, what is going on? Why is this person chasing us? Like, what's their deal, And our driver looks at me and he goes, are you scared? And I was like, are you kidding me? I've never experienced anything like this. He's like, we experience this stuff all the time. All the time.
And then Tuesday.
Just then, the truck shows back up again, parks 1 block away. And now we're just like, yeah, they're on us.
Yo, I'm guessing you, at some point, you were just like, they're going to kill us.
I mean, I definitely had that moment because when we met up with a radio show host there for this radio called Canal 3 in La Victoria, we asked him, we were like, hey, man, that red truck's been following us. You mind like going up there and asking him like why he's doing that? He's like, absolutely, man. So he like grabs his phone and he walks over there and he tries to take a picture of him. And I'm thinking in my head too, like, what does this all mean? Like, what is going on? We're like, we had heard about the disappearances, we heard about the murders, we heard about all of the tortures. So I'm thinking in my head, like, what would it take for them to do something like that? You know what I mean? Like, who is this person? Who's he hired by? So then I'm just looking around my space and being like, should I jump under this car? Should I go through this fence? Is it unlocked? I mean, I'm going through all these thoughts in my head. And then the guy tries to take a picture of the truck, and he just drives straight to us. I mean, like, flying to us. And I'm thinking he's going to run us over. He's going to shoot us. He whips out on the left and takes his turn in the corner right by us. And at that point, I just expected a gun to come out of that window. And it was like my hands were all clenched up, and then it took off, and then 2 other cars went flying, too. We realized there were other people that were following us. And it's like all of that stuff, all it created was a sense of insecurity because that continued on for weeks after I got back home. You know what I mean? Where I was like, what are they? Because we called the embassies in Chile. Like, my friends called the embassies in Chile. My partner called the embassy in Chile. Was like, I have people down there that are being incarcerated. We don't know what's happening, and we haven't heard from them. And the U.S. embassy would just go, yeah, we know all about it, but we can't share any information because it's private. And that's it. That was it. That was their whole thing. So it's like, to us, it was like, well, we have no help from our country, and we don't know what's gonna happen to us. So it's like,
we know what they're doing,
right? We know what's going on. We are aware of the situation, but they couldn't share any information because it was private, for security reasons. And then so that meant like coming back home is like, are they gonna keep track of us here? Like, are we?
Oh, hell yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like. So it definitely like affected me for a while, and it affected all of us. We all kind of like stopped talking for like a few months, and then recently started like catch up and be like, yo, like, what's it been like for you? And it's like, yeah, I mean, people were struggling with a little bit of like, what does it all mean? Like, what?
Yeah, it's gonna give you PTSD.
I mean, it gives you a little bit. It almost succeeds in being able to stop you from doing anything else. You know what I mean? Because you're like, what is it all worth? If you're gonna if you might lose your life for this, and you know what I'm saying? Or be incarcerated for it.
And it's crazy because you weren't you weren't doing something super nefarious, devious, like, hey, yo, we gotta free these political prisoners. We gotta do X, Y, and Z. We're bringing in money or whatever else to these people so they can get out of this. You're talking. You're going there to talk and have conversations about stuff. You're there after filming a documentary about stuff, like whatever's gonna happen way down the line, and they're just like, nah. Yeah. We're not gonna let that happen.
I mean, they planned to probably keeping us at the hotel the entire time, and then from there getting us into the airport. They didn't expect for us to get out, and I think that's what like escalated things for them. That we had a pushback.
Do you think that you're blocked from going back to Chile?
We were for a minute, and then thankfully a judge was able to finally look at what had happened, and she dropped the ban and said that what had happened was illegal, which, for us at that point was just like, well, it already happened, and we knew it was illegal. But technically, we're allowed to come back. I'll probably give it a couple of years before I attempt to do so.
But yeah. Was V a part of that, in the sense that did he get kicked out too?
No, because he's a Chilean resident. So everybody else that was with us that were Chilean residents or Chileans that lived there weren't affected by any of it. It was only just the American citizens.
They didn't. I would think that they would be like, all right, word. This is the connecting thread to them.
I mean, the thing is that they were followed from the airport when we were arrested the first time. Like V and everyone else were followed back to their home. So, that's when we all realized that things were a lot more than just COVID. This was like a covert operation to suppress whatever they thought we were doing. So, it's extreme.
That's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah. How much time are we at?
151 so far.
So we literally got 9 minutes left of this episode. So I told you it goes by quick.
Yeah,
it goes by quick. We ain't got to none of the articles or anything else. I mean, it goes by real crazy. So really quickly, I'm gonna you know what? Can we just go straight to the sounds about white? Huh? I was gonna say grind your beans and close it up. Well, let's do the sounds about white. So, Sounds About White is our segment where we show basically memeable moments of white stupidity. Where it's one of those things where it can be like a racial situation or whatever else. It's just like, of course that was a white person. That sounds about white. Sounds about white. Yeah. All right.
So we have, they were talking about how Antifa and the far right were continuing to fight in Salem, and this was outside of a Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, so they
anti-abortion.
Is that a picture of the far right?
Right?
Yes. Yes, it is. You know what's? Do you have the video?
I can find it. Oh, this?
I haven't seen that one. There's the one that Rev Daddy.
Yeah, this is him. It says the preacher who led last weekend's far right service.
No, it's Revolution Daddy. Sorry. But go ahead and play one of these clips. Let's see if it has most of the craziness in it.
I don't know if it's gonna have sound if I'm not on the Mac.
And I'm gonna real quick. See. This is why. Hey, Sam, do you follow Revolution Daddy?
On Twitter?
On IG.
I don't think I do.
I think on Twitter, she has all their stuff.
This is about
they
to
have all
play.
their stuff up there.
Because watching them is terrified of what's inside of you.
Y'all have nothing to do with Jesus. Just remember, this is all about you guys. This is not about Jesus.
Because watching them is terrified of what's inside of you.
Y'all have nothing to do with Jesus. Just remember, this is all about you guys. This is not about Jesus.
Because watching them is terrifying of what's inside of you.
Y'all have nothing to do with the Just remember, this is all about you guys.
We hate you because you disagree with us. I'm telling you, that's not the way to live. That's not the way to live.
Why do you take healthcare away from people?
Forgive.
Why do you hate people?
I mean, there's
We hate you just because you're different. We hate you because you disagree with us. I'm telling you that.
But it's the thing that, all right, so the thing that gets me, because there's another video of this where they attack the crowd and they like pepper spray them. They're throwing flash bangs. They have paintball guns and pellet guns. And it's the thing to me that I'm like, I don't need to be a situation within like a part of the police or whatever else. But in the situation of like the police dealing with these moments, I'm like, so someone has, you're more worried about the people that don't have the guns, the flashbangs, the bear mace, and all this other crazy stuff. You're more worried about them than these people that have then bulletproof vests, all the guns, all this stuff. And you're more willing to let them have free range of the situation.
This
like,
might be that video.
Go ahead and play it.
Come back, follow Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, the Nazis. There's a Nazi attack. Look at a Nazi attack. Holy shit, the Nazi attack. They all fucking went nuts. They came out. Look at they're Nazis. I knew it.
Yeah, and then, you hear it?
I mean, you know what I think it is. Like honestly, I think the police look at those situations and just realize, you know what, you guys do our job. Like, do our job. That's why you don't get involved. It's like they know that it's those people that are going to be doing the cops. You know what
Isn't
I mean?
that assault? I mean, that's assault. Like you're shooting someone with either a paintball gun or whatever else. You're during a respiratory pandemic. You're throwing out tear gas and bear macing people, so they literally have to take off. Like I mean,
we saw a much bigger response to marching, to asking for accountability, for showing up in mass outside of the precinct, than it was like for. Than it is for these people showing up with weapons, attacking people, pretending to be police officer, pretending to be like military. Like what do they think they are?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're ridiculous, is what they are.
Yeah, it's too crazy, and now we're dealing with some craziness on the show. But you know what I'm gonna say?
It's hot in here. Everybody wants.
It's hot. They trying to get that drip. Trying to get that drip. But you know what? I thank you, Rodrigo, for being on the show, for joining us for this. I'm gonna be honest, this is one of my favorite episodes. This is a deep dive, but we got to have you back on. There's definitely more we need to talk about. We didn't even get to like any of the segments.
Right.
So definitely got to have you back on. I thank you for joining this. Can you, if you want, you can shout out your social media or anything else like that if you want. More followers?
Yeah. I mean, I don't need more followers, but like Mestizo43 is my name on Twitter. It's on Instagram.
And that's where people can check you out.
That's where I have a lot of footage from police interactions in the last year, but also just kind of like what I help is I try to connect people with other organizations, other community, like try to build community is what I'm trying to do. So I try to help people out by connecting as much of them together and also being able to share things that are going on in the community so that everyone has an idea of what's going on. That's really what I'm trying to do, is make connections, really. And so my sites are all about that. Like it's not like I'm not promoting any of my personal work or any of that stuff, because I don't need to, man. I got my job. I got my stuff. I don't. Yeah.
Well, you know what?
But building community is more important to me. So.
Us as well. That's why we're down here in Chinatown and doing this the way we're doing it. Yeah. But once again, thank you, brother, for being on the show. I truly do appreciate it. If you would bring it into the camera on me so I can do the outro. This has been another episode of Your Morning Drip. I am your host, Runner Rock. Special guest, Rodrigo, sitting up here on the show. And I want to say, if you haven't had a chance yet to like and subscribe, you can find more information on the show on Your Morning Drip. We're going to link to my man's stuff in the description down below. And yeah, we out here. Peace. Fantastic.